Tonight, the death of the Queen, the world in mourning for the only monarch most of us have ever known.
7 decades of service to her people, an extraordinary life and legacy.
From Britain's day of darkness comes a new king. Charles III fulfills his destiny.
Perth remembers remarkable stories and scenes from a Queen who touched WA hearts.
And a final farewell planned step by step for years, now underway.
Live from Perth, 7 News with Rick Arden and Susanna Carr.
Good evening. 12 days of mourning are underway tonight to honour the 70-year reign of Queen Elizabeth II.
The 96-year-old passed away at her beloved holiday home, Balmoral Castle. As her condition deteriorated, royals, including Prince Charles and Prince William, raced from England to Scotland to be by her bedside as the longest-serving British monarch took her final breath.
Smiling and standing for duty, we now know when this final image of her was taken just how unwell she was, but still carrying out official duties right till the end.
That dedication to the Commonwealth is being honoured by people leaving flowers and mourning at her official residence, Buckingham Palace.
Flags are tonight flying at half-mast across Perth and the nation. Our Europe Bureau Chief Hugh Whitfeld is at Balmoral Castle tonight.
Hugh, King Charles III and the royal family are tonight executing a well-checked plan to honour Queen Elizabeth the way she wanted.
Sue, among King Charles's first duties as monarch, signing off on the plans that have been poured over for decades. Ceremonial proceedings that will span the breadth of the UK, marking the end of one reign and the beginning of another. In the last couple of hours, Prince Harry has departed from here at Balmoral. He's headed for Aberdeen Airport to fly back down to London to join his wife, Meghan. The Duke of Sussex was among the royals who scrambled here to Balmoral when they learned of the grave situation facing Her Majesty, who later passed away at a place here in Scotland she adored. A death confirmed by a traditional post at Buckingham Palace, first broken on social media for a wartime princess who survived to become a modern-day monarch. The Queen died peacefully at Balmoral this afternoon. The King and Queen Consort will remain at Balmoral this evening and will return to London tomorrow.
A few moments ago, Buckingham Palace announced the death of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II.
Breaking news from Scotland, here at Balmoral, where Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II has passed away at the age of 96.
The Queen is dead. At 96, Elizabeth II is gone.
Flags lowered to half-mast, confirming the death of our longest reigning monarch. The Queen's 2 eldest children, Charles and Anne, were already in Scotland with her at Balmoral, where the 96-year-old was last night said to have been resting comfortably under medical supervision. In itself, an ominous announcement. A procession of senior royals then scrambled to be by her side. Prince William drove his uncles Andrew and Edward and the Countess of Wessex to join the rest of the family. Too late, though, to see their mother and grandmother before she died. Prince Harry also rushed to Balmoral alone, visibly upset, more than an hour after her death was announced to the world. Her 15th Prime Minister, appointed just 2 days ago, emerged from 10 Downing Street with her first breaking news address to the nation.
We are all devastated by the news that we have just heard from Balmoral. The death of Her Majesty the Queen is a huge shock to the nation and to the world. It is a day of great loss, but Queen Elizabeth II leaves a great legacy. Today the crown passes, as it has done for more than 1,000 years, to our new monarch, our new head of state, His Majesty King Charles III. With the King's family, we mourn the loss of his mother. And as we mourn, we must come together as a people to support him, to help him bear the awesome responsibility that he now carries for us all. The passing of the second Elizabethan age, we usher in a new era in the magnificent history of our great country, exactly as Her Majesty would have wished, by saying the words, "God save the King."
His Majesty the King confirming he'll be known as Charles III, sharing his grief with his people. The death of my beloved mother, Her Majesty the Queen, is a moment of the greatest sadness for me and all members of my family. We mourn profoundly the passing of a cherished sovereign and a much-loved mother. I know her loss will be deeply felt throughout the country, the realms and the Commonwealth, and by countless people around the world. During this period of mourning and change, my family and I will be comforted and sustained by our knowledge of the respect and deep affection in which the Queen was so widely held. Happy and glorious, long to reign over us, God save the Queen. As we saw 25 years ago with the death of Diana, thousands rushed to the royal palaces in London and Windsor to mourn together. Floral tributes already growing.
I just happened to be walking down here and I noticed the flag at half mast, and that's the first I knew.
I can't really believe it, to be honest. I know she's getting older, but it's one of them things you never believe is going to happen.
She's the person we've always looked up to. Somehow, it's just a sad day.
She pledged her life to this country, and she led this country with great reverence and duty and respect and honour, and I just don't know if there will be another like her.
Australians went to bed fearing the worst, waking up to confirmation.
It is my solemn duty to inform you that Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II has passed away on the 8th of September 2022 at Balmoral in the United Kingdom. I have informed the Prime Minister, and the Australian Government will advise on arrangements for national mourning and other arrangements in the coming days.
There is comfort to be found in Her Majesty's own words. Grief is the price we pay for love. This is a loss we feel deeply in Australia. Queen Elizabeth II is the only reigning monarch most of us have known, and the only one to ever visit Australia. And over the course of a remarkable 7 decades, Her Majesty was a rare and reassuring constant amidst rapid change. Her life of faithful service will be remembered for centuries to come.
In America, an unprecedented mark of respect, President Joe Biden ordering flags be flown at half-mast for 10 days until the funeral.
I had the opportunity to meet her before she passed, and she was an incredibly gracious and decent woman. And the thoughts and prayers of the American people are with the people of the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth in their grief.
From the US to Europe,
Buckingham Palace.
It caught everyone out.
So here's the thing, the Inflation Reduction Act. Okay, all right. Well, okay, so that's been confirmed. Okay, the royal family.
On the ground and in the air.
Very sad news that our Queen, Her Majesty the Queen Elizabeth II, has died.
A planet interrupted. From the US Open,
we'd like to pause to remember Queen Elizabeth II.
To the United Nations, Wall Street traders and singer Harry Styles.
Join me in a round of applause for 70 years of service.
It even interrupted a nagging war.
З глибоким сумом дізнався про смерть.
As Vladimir Putin sent wishes as well, and as Paris flicked the switch on a ghostly Eiffel Tower, elsewhere on Earth they had other ideas. Brazil turned all British, as the Empire State Building turned a very right royal. From world leaders,
she was one of my favourite people in the world, and I will miss her so.
Present and past.
We just got along very well. We had a good chemistry, and we just talked all night long.
To the biggest names on earth who led tributes online. Elton John, Paul McCartney, Andrew Lloyd Webber, and many, many more. As Fleet Street did what Fleet Street does. The world united for a moment in time.
You know, it's very strange hearing King Charles, and you go, she's really gone. She's just been such a part of
all our lives. She's been the most incredible Queen. It's been the most glorious second Elizabethan era.
As news of her death was announced, rainbows appeared above Buckingham Palace and Windsor Castle. Perhaps a final goodbye after a lifetime of service. In Balmoral, Scotland, Hugh Whitfield, 7 News.
The Queen was never born to reign. Her path to the crown was carved by an abdication and the sudden death of her father.
But Her Majesty rose to the occasion and ruled for 70 years with perseverance, grace and dignity, determined to do her duty to the end.
The final image of Her Majesty. A portrait of peace and poise. Queen Elizabeth II, beside a fire, standing to duty in her Balmoral home just days ago. At 96, unwell but working. It was to meet and bless the 15th Prime Minister of her 70-year reign. We know now just how ill she was, but duty to her people, as always, was put first. The longest-serving British monarch and Queen of Australia celebrated her record reign at a Platinum Jubilee party, 7 decades for the woman born a princess who ended a queen. Insiders say this date in June was the milestone she desperately wanted to reach. Surrounded by the red, white and blue of the Union flag, Buckingham Palace, family, children, great-grandchildren and her adoring fans marking the honour. Absent, her husband and best friend, Prince Philip, who passed 17 months ago. Her Majesty Elizabeth II, Queen of Australia, the United Kingdom, New Zealand and Canada, Defender of the Faith, Head of the Commonwealth, Ruler of the British Empire. No other monarch in British history reigned or lived or served as long. No other head of state travelled as far or met as many subjects. Her passing brings to a close the second Elizabethan age.
And it's the end of a whole era, and it's an era which has lasted from longer than most people's lives.
One day, Alexandra Mary Windsor, born April 21st, 1926, was never expected to rule. But when her uncle, King Edward, fell for the American divorcee Wallace Simpson and abdicated for love over duty, Elizabeth's father took the throne.
George VI was proclaimed king.
Suddenly, Elizabeth, aged 11, was heiress to the crown. If she'd had a brother, whatever age, the princess would have lost her position as first in line. But her only sibling was a sister, Princess Margaret, born 1930. Elizabeth never went to school. She was busy learning on the job.
She was very much an ordinary little girl. She has no huge opinion of herself or anything, but has given up her life to that particular job that she was called to.
Her early life was defined by the Second World War, where she served as an ambulance driver and mechanic.
Although she drives it with apparent composure, she had no experience of driving before she commenced her training.
And when it ended, VE Day, she slipped unnoticed out of Buckingham Palace to join the London crowds in celebration, hat pulled low, anonymous, the only time in her life she mixed freely with the public, hidden in plain sight. In the same year, 1947, she announced her engagement to Royal Naval Officer Prince Philip of Greece and Denmark.
Our future queen had found true love.
Their royal wedding in 1947, a burst of colour in the grey years after the war. Australia provided the wedding cake,
A gift made possible by the generosity of the Girl Guides of Australia.
Firstborn was Charles, followed by Anne. But life for the young parents would quickly change. The King developed lung cancer. Elizabeth took on more of his royal duties, including this trip to Australia. The airport farewell was the last time she would see him.
The tragic news reached Princess Elizabeth and her husband while in Kenya.
It was February 6, 1952. Elizabeth was proclaimed Queen at 25. She mourned her father with foreign royals and heads of state.
And following were the heavily veiled, grieving figures of the Queen Mother, and Princess Margaret.
I think the way that she handled it with an effortless grace. And I think at that point you really realised who this person is.
18 months later, Coronation Day.
Into the forecourt of the palace and through the gates comes the gilded coach, 2 centuries old,